What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Optimize You. You might be wondering, this is usually the Life Huntington podcast, but with bringing on my friend and now co-host Matt DeJesus here, we are doing a little bit of a facelift and kind of adding some layers to the podcast. So we're still going to be talking about health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, all of that stuff. But we're also bringing in a new podcast that's going to be released on Wednesdays here starting in the next few weeks, where I'm going to be talking about creating lasting change in your life. So I'm going to talk about my story of quitting alcohol and what I've gone through the steps to actually create that change in my life and be able to stick to that. And I'm going to be interviewing people as well who've created huge changes in their life, made big breakthroughs in their life, and have really been able to keep those results and those changes forever. I just want to be able to, in that podcast, kind of draw conclusions on how we can all change habits, how we can all change these things in our life that we don't want and make those stick forever. And so we got Matt coming on. We got some good additions to the podcast. And now going forward, it is Optimize You, where we're going to help you transform your health, fitness, nutrition, mindset, identity, and create lasting change in your life. We have a special announcement podcast coming at you. As you can see, we got a face that has been on this podcast before, and a special announcement is coming that Matt DeJesus is going to be our co-host with me going forward. Me and him are going to be rocking this shit. We're going to be providing value. And so officially welcoming Matt DeJesus.
Yeah, man, I'm pumped to be back, dude. Not only pumped to be back to being a part of it, right? And so I'm excited, and thanks for having me on. And I'm excited for some episodes coming up. We've already talked about them. We've talked about topics and conversations. So I'm already pumped, man. I'm ready to go.
That makes two of us, man. I am so pumped. And really the reason why, just for everybody out there, I thought our podcast was just amazing that we did together. You provided so much value. And we've obviously talked, just especially throughout the last few weeks. I came in your group and did something, and it just felt like we could go back and forth for hours and hours just on really anything. And so it's like, this is a really good just match up, and we have the same type of philosophies when it comes to health, fitness, nutrition, all that stuff. And so, gosh, I figured it'd be just a perfect thing, and we'd be able to provide a lot more value together than just us separately. So I think that it's going to be an awesome just partnership, and I'm pumped. I'm super pumped.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to jam on some of these topics and also kind of introduce myself and let people know, who is this guy, so you guys know who I am. But more excited to answer questions, jump on different style of podcasts, whether we have people on here, dive into their stories, whether it's just you and me. I'm really excited about it all.
Love it, dude. Well, let's start. Let's just kind of make this podcast just a way for everybody out there, all of our audience so far, to get to know you a little bit better. I mean, obviously you told a little bit about your story of how you've kind of come up in the health fitness space and how you became an online nutrition coach. But I'd love to hear just more of the story of just how you became Matt DeJesus, where you were born, all that stuff, what you're doing currently, what your hobbies are, all that stuff.
Yeah, man. So I was originally born in the Bay Area. So San Francisco, California, lived there my entire life, all the way through grade school, all the way through high school, and then moved. Actually, I currently live in Portland, Oregon now. So huge change of weather. I didn't notice that I was taking it for granted with all the beautiful sunshine in California. And then all of a sudden I move up here and people are, oh man, it's going to be dark and gloomy. It's cloudy. Why are you going there? Well, for one, it's so damn expensive here in California, right? You're just going to get priced out of the Bay Area real quick. I was able to come up here, buy a home, be able to afford and pursue something that I was extremely passionate about. Like in the Bay Area, I was working 2 jobs. You're just trying to stay afloat there. It's super competitive, which, don't get me wrong, it gives you that edge. And I think I take that and carry that with me in my back pocket today, just as far as using it to my advantage. But I mean, I'm still talking to friends and family who still live there. It's tough, man. So those of you that still live there now, it's a beautiful place. I love it. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just a lot different now than what I traditionally grew up in. But again, I think it all happens for a reason. And I took a lot of those things with me growing up in the Bay Area, the competitiveness, I wish I could have took the weather with me, but overall, it's just a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's very different than Portland, not in a good or bad way, just very different. And so I'm actually technically in Beaverton, which is a city just outside of Portland here. And we're finally getting some good weather now. I moved up to be a part of something that I would actually enjoy pursuing. So I was traditionally with Nike for a long time. And people think that since I moved up to Portland, I'd be at headquarters and transition over to Nike. I actually left Nike to come up here. My parents bought a home up here for when they retired. And so I was kind of the first one that made the transition up this way, just to be closer to family, find something that I could afford, get on my feet, and then just actually pursue something that I was passionate about and actually be able to do it and not feel like you're going broke. Right. So I put myself in a position to be successful and move, change states, although it wasn't too far. I didn't know anybody when I moved up here, and I was able to pursue fitness full time, which was great. And that was my goal. That's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to leave kind of the corporate realm. I learned a ton with Nike, and I'm super grateful for them. But even when I was with Nike, I was always coaching on the side. Before I was with Nike, I was coaching. So I have been coaching technically since 2008, 2009, which is right when I graduated college, played minor league ball for a little bit, and then I transitioned quick into being a strength and conditioning coach. My very first job, actually, I guess if you want to count it as a job, was an internship. So I was a student intern at San Diego State. Went back after playing ball and got my feet wet with coaching from 5 a.m. in the morning till 5 p.m. at night, not making a single dime. Like, you're coaching all the teams, but you're getting paid in knowledge, right? That was something that I don't want to take for granted and that I'll never take for granted. And I was able to learn from some of the most phenomenal strength coaches to this day that were super educated, very well versed in the field. And they taught me things that I apply till this day, which is great. And it got me the experience to work with all different kinds of people too. So it wasn't just with one particular sport. It was you'd be with swimming and diving. Then the next group that would come in would be soccer. And then it would be softball, then baseball, which I was very familiar with. Then the football team would come in, basketball. So you golf, right? So I was training all these different athletes, which was super cool. It exposed me to so many different modalities, different stimulus. What were the demands of each group that was coming in? Because they were all very different. And that was something that took me from my traditional sport of baseball and understanding, okay, there's still some similarities here, but depending on the sport, there's going to be a lot of foundations that are going to be very similar. There's also going to be a lot of things that are different depending on who's coming in. And so that allowed me to grow very quickly and adapt very quickly, just based on the different demands of the people who I was training at the time, because 1 hour it would be this group, the next hour that was coming in would be a totally different sport. And so I think people just group sports like synonymously into one category, but they had very different training modalities depending on where they were at in their season too. So that was a phenomenal experience for me. That was my very first experience getting exposed to, outside of being an athlete personally. That was kind of my first introduction to the strength and conditioning or personal training realm, or anything health and fitness related. I also graduated with a degree in kinesiology. So that was an emphasis in exercise, nutrition, and wellness. So it had always been something that I wanted to do. And that's what I got my degree in. I knew when I transitioned after playing baseball that that's what I wanted to get into. A lot of people told me, there wasn't going to be money in there. That's more of like a physical therapist route. Like, you can do that. And I was just like, I'm going to figure out a way. I know what I like to do. I know what I love to do. And that's to coach other people, because I see the benefits of how it's carried over for myself. And so that's kind of how, I got introduced to it. I know that's a lot right there, but that's kind of how I got introduced to, getting into the field and being in here for quite a while now. So, we're 2023 and I've been in it since that was my very first experience. It was 2009, 2010. So yeah, and we're kind of been doing it ever since.
I love it, dude. And I guess a few things there, like Beaverton is Oregon State, right? Is that where Oregon State?
Corvallis is Oregon State, and then Eugene is U of O. So yeah, they're both about a couple hours from here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then you played baseball in college. You played at San Diego State, and then you went back there afterwards to do the strength and conditioning.
Yeah, so I was there for for my strength and conditioning internship. Yeah, so I went back, and I spent maybe just under a year doing that, like roughly a year doing my student internship. Once I finished from that, I went and got my first job. Actually, let me back up. I got my first strength and conditioning certification because they allowed me to kind of study in between sessions. So I was like facing a book, like, reading as much as I possibly could from, like I said, I was there from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And studying from, I didn't even technically have a certification yet. So they still allowed me to train and kind of be under their wing. And then eventually I got enough experience to be like coach my own groups, but that came with time. Right. And here I am. And this goes to show too, people are always asking me like, what certifications do I need? And it's like, I suggest just go getting practical experience with somebody. Like if you can get an internship somewhere, like they're going to teach you more than that book's going to teach you. I just needed to do it because it was necessary for okay, let me check the box. Like I need to be certified, but I was coaching before I was even certified. I think people need to get certified and then go coach. Like sure, in a perfect world, but I'll tell you right now from experience, like that internship where you're coaching for free and I didn't have my very first certification yet was like the best experience ever. And then shortly after, as soon as I completed my internship, then I went and took the test. And of course I passed that and got so many certifications since then, but that was my very first one. And I was actually coaching people before I had a certification. Technically, I guess if you're a student intern, you can do that. And trust me, I was absorbing as much as I possibly could. I think that's a lot of people's bottleneck is they think they need to have some sort of certification before they start coaching. And again, you don't want to go in and hurt people, right? Like that's never your intention, but people who are ambitious and want to learn more about coaching, like learn from somebody, be under their wing. And then once they trust you to have, kind of free reins to be able to coach people through practical application. And you've showed that you have experience and that you can actually coach people. If you're interning for somebody, they should give you those reins. Be like, yeah, go for it. Like that's the only way you get better. So, I'm sure you get people to ask you too, like what's the best certification to get? And honestly, the best certification is just practical application, like actual experience. The book stuff's great, but to be honest with you, I'm not going to break down in so much detail down to a cellular level of why somebody wants to lose weight. Occasionally I'll get that person, but they're few and far between. But somebody that actually just wants to get from point A to point B, they want it in the simplest terms possible. So the book stuff is like, I tell people like get in a situation where you can train people for free, whether it's your family members, it's people that trust you, like get your feet wet, get experience with that. And that's what I'd recommend for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's awesome. And that's great advice there where getting in the trenches is always going to be the best way to actually get the best. Like that's so NCI was the first, which Nutrition Coaching Institute for anybody out there, like that's where me and Matt are both a part of and where we met. And they have like the application side locked in, which they're the first thing that I ever did, right? That's how I got into coaching in the first place.
Yeah.
Was seeing their owner Jason on Mind Pump, and then getting on a call, end up getting involved in their stuff, and then they make you have guinea pigs or like people that you work with for free to start to get any of their certifications or their level 1 certification. And so that's when I started working with people. I'm like, oh, okay, like this is awesome. And I'll be honest, like working with people combined with actually getting a coach myself were the best things that I ever did for becoming a better coach. Because if you don't, like once you kind of start to interact with people and you start to kind of figure out the different struggles that people have and like what you're going to have to do on a daily, weekly basis, that's when you start to really pick it up and kind of the intricacies of just how everybody's different. And that's what makes our job, I think, so fun is that like everybody's different and we actually customize things. Like it's not Optavia, it's not all these other BS bad diets out there that like everybody does the same stuff and doesn't really account for the fact that everybody's different. And so I think that's great. And I'm curious, like, so you said that was one of the best things you ever did was do the internship. Like what was the biggest thing that you learned through that internship?
Yeah, I think just the experience from the coaches alone, I learned a lot of different things, like literally down to intricacies of what not to do too, right? So you're learning from people who are super knowledgeable. And with that come, I guess you could call them like the OGs of the strength industry. They had been in the industry for some of them like 20, 30 plus years, like doing this. And so being able to just soak up knowledge from them was great. they were also, they, I'm not going to give them a bad rap, but they had certain tendencies from doing it for so long too, that working with a younger crowd, I can kind of see behind the scenes and how the younger kids or younger athletes would respond to, I guess you could say, like old school tendencies, right? Whether it was a certain part of conditioning that the athletes just didn't agree with, or like they just hated, or it was a way about going it to where it could have been approached a little bit slightly different. So those are the things that you're not going to like pick up from a book, right? Those are things that you're not going to necessarily like learn from reading a certain specific chapter in a physiology book, right? Like, so learning practical application, learning real life experience, how different people respond based on different cues that you give them to try to get a different response out of them. And then from a nutritional side of things too, like it was pretty cool being on that side of it, because I had also been an athlete. So then being on the coaching side of things, you see how terrible the athletes eat, because I was one of them. Like, yeah, I know exactly like how you guys are eating. So as soon as you got them to grasp the concept of like, even if you just take it, 10, 15, 20% better than what you're currently consuming right now for your food, like watch the experience, watch the fuel give you what you need, and watch your performance on the court, on the field, whatever. And if you notice a difference, like that's when a light bulb would go off for them and go, oh, okay, everybody's strong. Everybody can lift weights. Everybody can move well, especially at higher levels. The thing that'll separate you is being able to take care of your body and fueling yourself properly. Like that's the thing that would separate people. And very few and far between, like the ones that were really good would see it, they'd grasp the concept, and then they would run with it. It's very similar like to when we take on clients for today, whether it's a mom, a dad, whoever it is. Soon as they grasp the concept and they actually see firsthand of what they're deciding to fuel their body with and how different their outcome can be just based on even just small changes, just slight changes. It's almost like you don't have to force them to do it. You just kind of lay it out for them and say, hey, you should expect to see XYZ within the next couple of weeks if you decide to do this. And when they do, and they actually start to see that, again, that light bulb goes off and they get super excited. They're like, okay, he's not just saying this, like this actually works. I can see it work. I feel it working. And then that's when people just are kind of off to the races, which was super cool. Again, another thing that you don't necessarily learn from a book, right? Being able to lay a foundation out for somebody that's completely customized to their individual needs, their goals, whether it was an athlete back in the day doing an internship that I wasn't getting paid for, or sped all the way up until today, running a full business and coaching all different kinds of clients. Either way, that practical application is something that you can't really trade in for or read from a textbook. Now, don't get me wrong. You need the certifications. You need to get certified. It's part of the requirement. But there's a lot of things that you're going to learn that aren't necessarily going to be in a textbook, that are actual practical application that get people and yield results, because everybody's going to be different.
For sure. And the crazy thing is you see, especially I think you see this in like the bodybuilding industry, where you could have these bodybuilders, they've been doing it for 10, 20 years, that honestly don't even need a certification, right? Like they could train everybody else and they do an amazing job just because they've done everything under the sun, and they've probably been helping people even just over the course of their time. So like that kind of just goes to show as well that like those certifications, sometimes they can just be more of a formality, even though you do learn some things. But yeah, I definitely have picked up a lot of stuff from NCI's education stuff that they have, and it's helped me greatly become a better coach. But the NASM, personal training certification that I got, I can't say that I've like had to implement like a ton of that. Like I think I've figured out my programming and stuff more or less through like getting coached through different strength and conditioning coaches, and then actually just trying to implement different things throughout on myself and helping other people.
I agree with you 100%. There's like that tangible thing that you can't necessarily get that you're going to apply from a textbook. Like there will be things, there will be plenty of stuff that we do apply, but being able to actually coach people, I think is one of the best ways to get that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And love to change directions here. And just like, what do you love to do for fun? Like outside of coaching, I know it takes a lot of our time. We were talking about that earlier today. Like sometimes we feel like we just kind of sit here all day and we're constantly working. But like when you're not working, what are you doing?
We were talking about golf earlier, right? So I love to play golf, getting more and more into that. I feel like each year, when I graduated, my dad got me some clubs, which was awesome. That was like my graduation gift. And I was pumped because I had always been like coaches had always told me like, don't go play golf. You're going to mess up your baseball swing. Right. So it's kind of just, you stayed away from it. And so I was excited to start playing golf. I didn't play that much when I first graduated, but now I probably play more, which still isn't a lot, but it's something I enjoy to do, especially the weather up here is starting to get nicer. So I have fun with that. Go play with some buddies. And if you guys haven't played golf, it's the most frustrating and most rewarding sport at the same time, right? If you want a mental challenge, like health and fitness is a mental challenge in itself, you go play the game of golf. You will find out very quickly what you're made of from a mental standpoint. That's for sure. So I love playing golf. I love fishing too, man, bass fishing. So I got really into that. So I came up to Oregon, moved up to Oregon. I wasn't into it before. One of my buddies got me, he was like, hey, you should just come bass fishing. And I was like, I thought it was traditional fishing, like how I did when I was a kid, throw some power bait on a line, cast it out there, sit and just wait and be bored. The whole sport of bass fishing was like, constantly cast, retrieve. Like there's a lot of skill to it. There's a lot of technique. So it was very interesting to me and very similar to like health and fitness, all these little nuances that you can tweak as you're going about your journey. You can get better. You can figure the fish out. There's actually technique and strategy to it. Very similar to like a meal plan. It's not just like throwing everything together, keeping your fingers crossed. It's like, no, there can be a very strategic approach here that can yield a better or higher result or outcome. And when you do that, I saw a lot of carryover. So my passion for the health and fitness, I was seeing stuff that intrigued me in the bass fishing, which is so random. Like now that I think about it, but it's so fun. It just like fascinates me. It just like lights me up. And I couldn't even tell you why. I think that's probably the aspect of it where it's like, just by changing up your color of your lure, understanding the time of day, what the weather's like, what's the water clarity, what's the pressure like all these different things, like what temperature the water is it pre-spawn, is it spawn, like all these different elements go into it. Very similar to like somebody's health and nutrition journey, right? Like what's their previous dieting experience? What's their training age? How long have they been training for? How short have they been training for? What's their job like? What's their current physical activity like? What's their energy expenditure like? All these attributes. So for me, I think the thing that interests me, very similar to like somebody's health and fitness journey, is figuring it out, like putting the pieces together. The challenge of that, I think, intrigues me the most, which actually helps me. And those of you that like are getting into your health and fitness journey, I think the thing that excites me the most is the actual process of it. Instead of getting to like the ultimate reward of like, oh, catching the biggest fish, like that's cool. I think figuring out how to catch the biggest fish, or in a tournament, the best five, is the most interesting thing to me. Just like figuring out somebody's approach to health and fitness and figuring out why they haven't had success before. Let's figure out why. What are their lifestyle factors? What are they currently doing now that they can shift? What habits aren't serving them? What habits can we shift out? And so for me, I actually get intrigued and fascinated by the process of things, which is probably why those are probably my two favorite things right now is the hobbies of golf and fishing, but then also the professional side of health and fitness, and actually the tinkering and tweaking and figuring out and navigating through the actual process itself, I think just lights me up. That's super fun for me. That might sound kind of nerdy or dumb to some people, but that's just what fires me up. And it's funny to hear people who are interested in other things that don't interest me at all. And I can name those things and they don't interest people at all. But for whatever reason, those are the things that like just light me up and fire me up. I get excited about them.
Hell yeah, dude. I love it. And first off, golf is my favorite thing in the whole world.
Yeah.
I love golf so much. And it is the most frustrating thing in the world too. Like, oh my gosh.
So frustrating.
There's no other sport out there that you could play the shittiest first 17 holes ever and then birdie 18 and you just feel like you're on top of the world. You're like, okay,
you're the man.
Round is worth it. This round is worth it. Like and there's also no other sport out there. I don't think that like you could play the best first 9 holes and the worst first 9 holes in the same round. Like there's
Yeah.
such a small like change. It's honestly kind of like baseball, right? Like, and I relate so heavily with that. I actually golfed a ton growing up. Just when I was young, like my grandma and grandpa have always been like huge golfers. And so like they would take us out, and then I got into it all the way up until about high school, where baseball started getting a little bit more just important to me. And I was like, it's going to mess up my swing. And just like anything, like if you think it's going to mess up your swing, it already fucking messed up your swing.
Yeah.
Like,
Mentally,
so
you're done.
you're not going to be able to do it. So like I never really played a lot throughout the high school, college, like professional baseball time for me. But then now it's my favorite thing to do. And so I
Yeah.
love that, dude. It's great. And fishing, I don't fish as much as I guess my parents live on a lake up in northern Minnesota. And
Mm.
so, but the fishing on the lake is pretty crappy. And so I think that kind of maybe deters me a little bit. But I do like tossing in a line here and there
Yeah.
and getting into it. But it sounds like you absolutely kill them there in Oregon. Weren't you saying you got like 50 or something last time you went?
Oh, the other day, yeah, and it's just because of the time of year. So again, you can go out there and not catch any, but right now is one of the prime times of the year to go out there and do it, just because they're feeding up before they spawn. So they're trying to gorge themselves as much as they possibly can, knowing that they're going to go up shallow and focus on protecting their fry and their eggs. And so those are all like little things that I had to learn over time, that, like, okay, there's certain times, because I think people go out and they go fishing, they don't catch anything, and they're like, oh, this sucks, which it does. But figuring them out and knowing the times of year to go out that are going to give you the best percentages are like, it's the best thing ever. It makes it super fun. And then you go, oh, okay, this is why people enjoy this, because you're actually catching fish. Like, this is actually fun. And so it becomes much more enjoyable process than going out there and just getting skunked and putting up a zero and be like, oh, this sucks. I don't even think there's fish in here. Like,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. I used to, back when I used to drink, that's what fishing was on our lake. It was like, okay,
Yeah.
we'll catch a fish, but at least we're going to catch a buzz, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah,
our whole deal.
exactly.
It's like, what, we're going to pack the cooler full, and so like at a bare minimum, we're gonna be feeling good by the time we're done here. But what random question? What's your favorite food?
Oh man, you know what? Right now I've been doing weekly. I at least give myself one day a week to pick a particular pizza for me. That's
Ooh.
like my Achilles heel. That's my weakness. But I figured out how to manipulate it in my nutrition based on the season that I'm currently in, to include that thing. And you and I are always talking about sustainability. If you come on with Alex or myself into one of our programs, we're going to give you an approach that's sustainable. And I tell people, like, if you can't include those things in your nutrition plan, and you can't include those as part of your routine or enjoy those still, then what are you doing it for, right? Like, I can eat chicken and broccoli 24/7 and I could be super shredded. Great. I could check that box. That would be phenomenal. But at what sacrifice? If I have to give up pizza, I ain't doing it, man. I ain't doing it. And so I encourage people to also find a plan that works for them, not just for the next 12 or 16 weeks, but something that they can integrate into their life. And for me, I'm like, I'm not willing to give up pizza, but I can create boundaries and set parameters around it to where I can include it and still get results. And so for me, I'm like, I definitely try to practice what I preach. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I just eat 100% whole foods every single day, every single week perfectly. It's like, no, I actually enjoy pizza at least once a week, every single week. As of lately, maybe not every single week, all the time, year round, but as of right now, I've been hot on it. So I've been weekly, and ice cream too, of course. I think my favorite is, let's see, like a peanut butter cup ice cream is probably my favorite. That's, yeah. If I had a choice, I would do that. Or like a cookie dough, something like that. Something gluttonous, something that's going to mess up my stomach, but it probably tastes phenomenal.
Oh, for sure. That's mine. Ice cream. I do like some pizza. I don't eat it as much as I used to. I don't know. I just don't really get it too often, but ice cream every week. Gotta have
Yeah.
some.
Yeah.
Same. And honestly, I've been in the camp of like just the pure obsession over just being super rigid on my plan, super high food quality, like as
Mm.
perfect as I possibly could be, like perfect, right? Like, cause it's unrealistic. And then I've been in the camp now where I've had like the best relationship with food, which is not saying it's like, still I do have work. I know I talk about this on my self-love journey podcast. Like, I still have my struggles here and there with binges, and constantly working through that, constantly working through mindset. But I've been in both camps, right? I've been with the obsession, and I've been with the just more freedom with my food choices. And gosh, the stress relief that comes from being comfortable eating and being flexible with your plan is just second to none. And knowing that wherever you go, right? Like you go to a wedding, you go to your friend's house where you don't know where the food's going to be, and you know that like all will be fine, right? All will be fine. It's kind of that frame where I like to tell people the 80-20 frame, where it's just a gauge. Doesn't have to be exactly like you're not going to measure it out and be like, I was 79% quality foods today. But, just knowing that like, I think of that as like an ability to include those foods, right? It's like, it's not about the 80%. It's about including the 20% and including those favorite foods in your plan and knowing that you're not a bad person or you're not doing anything wrong by doing that.
Totally. And then once people figure that out and it clicks for them, they can have their cake and eat it too, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm a huge fan of the 80-20. And being able to include the things that you actually enjoy, it's going to make life more enjoyable. It's going to take, like you said, a lot of stress off your shoulders, because I too have been on the other camp and the other side of things. I was actually competing for CrossFit like competitively, and I was trying to also look good at the same time, which we know are on the opposite sides of the spectrum, right? Like I wanted, like having abs was super important to me. Also lifting the heaviest weight for the fastest amount of time was also important to me, because I needed that was a demand and requirement for competitions. And so I found myself tanking energy wise very quickly, like running up against a wall. And I figured like, oh man, this is just part of it. You just have to have really strong grit and grind and being able to, push as hard as you can through this. Everybody feels like this, everybody feels like this low on energy, and you got to just push through it. Right. And that only lasted for so long until I educated myself on it and go, oh, okay, I was doing that backwards. Performance and aesthetics are on the opposite side of the spectrum here. So yeah, figuring out the hard way. That's why I tell people like, take it from me, take it from us. We've gone through it. We've messed it up. We've educated ourselves on it. We are going to save you a lot of time, a lot of stress, a lot of struggle. So that's why I always recommend somebody get a coach, even if it's not one of us. Get a coach, fast track your progress in the right direction. You're going to take away so much guesswork for yourself, and that goes for us too. Like you and I both have a coach, right? Like we have coaches in our process. To be able to run our business, to be able to be as well educated and well versed as we possibly can. And it's saving us, yes, it's a financial investment up front, but it's saving us years of headache, of struggle, of pain, of sacrifice, trying to figure this out on our own. So yeah, I'd highly recommend that to anybody. Figure something out that is sustainable for you. And if you can get that information from somebody who's already done it, who's experienced it, has proven to have results, man, what are you waiting for? Right? Like draw the line in the sand, step over it, let's go.
Hell yeah, dude. Couldn't agree more. Obviously we're on the same boat there. We both are coaches. We both have coaches in different areas of our lives. And that's been, we were talking about this earlier too. Like that's been the biggest thing for me. And we're going to do a podcast on this coming up, just like kind of around asking for help and just like how to do this, how to kind of get out of your own way. Cause I think that's the biggest thing that stands in just about everybody's way, including us, whenever in different areas of what we're trying to do, is that we stand in our way. We try to do it on our own for too long. We try to just push through the resistance and just not allow ourselves to basically save tons and tons of time by going to somebody who's already done it successfully, or that can give us the roadmap. And I mean, shit, it saves so much time. And you said guesswork. I use the exact same word. Takes the guesswork out of it. Like,
yeah.
We've done this with a bunch of different people, right? Like we've both done this with many different people. We've probably done it with somebody similar to you, right? Like your body's going to be a little bit different and there's going to be those different intricacies. But at the same time, like we're going to be able to give you a pretty good plan right away. And then from there, make those adjustments based on what we're seeing to allow you to move towards where you want to be.
That's what it's about, man. It's making those adjustments along the way. I think people think it's just going to be a one size fits all. And if, by the way, if you are following something like that, is it going to be better than what you're probably doing? Yes, of course. But that's a huge difference in what it is that we offer is we make constant adjustments because there's going to be no one size fits all. If you're following a one size fits all plan, at some point, you're going to need to have questions. You're going to need to get something adjusted. Do you have the person in your corner to be able to do those things or not? That's what I always encourage people to ask themselves is like, do the plan, sure. If it's the same plan as your friends, great, because it's probably going to be something that's better than what you're currently doing, which for a lot of people or most people is probably nothing. So it's going to get you a great start and you're going to be off on the right foot. I always encourage people to extend their time horizon time horizon out and ask yourself, is this something I can do and commit to for the rest of my life? And if the answer is no, you're better off trying to transition to find something so that you can put your ladder on the right building, so to speak, right? Doing something in the short term is great. It's going to get you results very quickly. But we don't have this obesity problem as far as people learning how to get the weight off. People just don't know how to keep it and sustain it. And so if you don't have a plan that teaches you that, that's what I encourage people to ask themselves is this plan going to not only get me the result, but it's going to help me keep the result?
I love it. And yeah, I say a similar thing. Like I talk about how like I'm going to help you not have to try another diet again because you finally have your own lifestyle plan. Because that's what it's all about. It's a never ending journey, right? Like even for us, like we're always going through different things, different phases. We follow the same type of stuff that we preach, and there's constantly throughout the year roadblocks, right? That we have to get through, different struggles, mindset wise, otherwise, food wise. I go through all these different struggles that my clients go through, which I'm assuming you probably have the same type of thing. And I think that also makes it a little bit more relatable. Sometimes for me, I'll say like it makes me feel like I'm not a good coach, but I have other people tell me something. It's good to have good people in your corner. Be like, hey, like just share this stuff with people because it makes you more relatable. Like they know. And I've found that too by when I've said stuff in my group about like the struggles that I'm going through, that people are like, oh, wow. Like I don't want to sound bad, but like, it's nice to hear that you're going through this too, because like, it feels like you're this perfect, I'm good at my nutrition, health, whatever. And it's so far from the truth, right? Like I'm just not even close to perfect. I would love to be, but like, I don't think that's necessarily realistic. Like we're human.
Yeah. This past weekend, I had family here visiting. They were here for a swimming event, and they have a 10-year-old with them as well, right? So they come here. Of course, we're going to do a grocery store shop, and there's going to be certain food that was in my house that when they were here, great. And as they left, they're going to leave it here as well. So I'll be completely transparent. There was some boxes of graham crackers. There was some chips. They're gone now because I ate them all, right? But as long as they're in the cupboard, like, man, that's my Achilles heel, man. That's my weakness, is anything with like crunch, like chips, crackers, anything like that. And trust me, this was last weekend. It took about a week less than a week, I guess, technically, for boxes. We're talking Costco size of these things too, right? For them to be gone. Mind you, I'm here eating them by myself. So macros went out the window, just to be completely honest. Macros went completely out the window this week, but it's out of sight now. It's out of mind. I'm back into my routine. Yeah, we're definitely not perfect. We are human. We go through it. But I will say I don't regret it. I don't regret it. It tastes phenomenal. Yeah, it got me off track a little bit. But I'm also in that point in my season right now where I love, this was explained to me super well too, is like, paint the picture for yourself from a nutritional standpoint that it goes in seasons, right? And that's how you and I learned it. It's just like nutritional periodization is a real thing. I think people just think like they have to cut super hardcore or diet super hardcore, and they have to stay at these super low calories and do double days and all this cardio. And it's like, as soon as you are able to paint the picture of nutritional periodization, meaning different seasons are going to require you to be in different stages of where you're at with your nutrition. And for me, I'm actually in a surplus, right? I'm above my maintenance right now. I'm trying to actually establish a new maintenance and eat as many calories as I can without gaining an excessive amount of body fat. So for me, for that to happen this past weekend was probably the perfect time it possibly could, versus me being in like a super strict cut diet phase where I'm like, having to pay attention to every single macro for this short temporary time because it's very important to me. I'm trying to lower my body fat, etc. I was in a really good position to kind of just go crazy, not have any guilt. So for that stuff to be in the house right now, currently, it was actually a good time, but I don't feel guilty about it. And I just share that to show people like, yes, I still deal with my binge tendencies. I'll still get way off track. And I think the truest and the rawest thing that you can do is first acknowledge it, but then also understand that you're human. And I'm more so concerned with myself and my clients as well, as how quickly do you respond? How quick do you get back on track? Just because you got off right now doesn't mean it has to be a landslide for the next week, 2 weeks, the next month. You didn't undo all your progress. I didn't undo all my progress in this last less than week. Let's call it 4 or 5 days. And trust me, if I were to estimate, I didn't even track it, but if I were to estimate how many calories I would eat in excess of what I was normally eating, at least 2,000, like minimum, at least 2,000 over my maintenance of what I'm normally shooting for. Right. But it just goes to show you, did I hop on the scale and gain some weight? Yeah, I did. Am I stressed and worried about it? No, because I'm getting right back on track today. Right. And so everything's dialed back in. So I share that to show people like, I'm human. I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to give into those things still to this day. I've been doing this for a long time. Alex and I both have. And you just get better at dealing with it. You learn to control your body a little bit more. You learn to control even better how you respond to the situation. And when you can do that and you understand at the end of the day, you're in ultimate control, your experience gets a whole lot more fun versus going, oh, why am I doing these things? This isn't in my control. Everybody's against me. These foods are in control of me, right? That's a tough position to be in. And a lot of you guys might be in that position, but understanding you have more control than you think, you can always get right back on the wagon. It makes the process a lot more enjoyable.
I couldn't said it better myself. I think that's the biggest thing with me too, that has gotten so much better over the years, is like the quickness of getting back to it after those things. And I would be lying if I said I didn't feel guilty and frustrated from time to time when I did have these binges or stuff like that happen. But it's a good reminder that we are human and that you can't control it anymore, right? You just got to go back to the next thing. And I like to say that you're only 1 second away from getting back on track. It's literally a mindset, right? On track. There's no such thing as on track. It's all in your head, right? So if you determine that you're on track now, guess what? You're on track. But awesome, man. Well, I love it. I think, just kind of ending here with what we're going to do going forward, right? We briefly touched on it, but like we're going to try to have different types of shows going up for you guys. Like we want to do some Q&A stuff. And so like if you ever have questions at all, like feel free to comment on any of our YouTube videos if you watch us there. I think you can comment on Spotify and Apple. I'm not 100% sure. You can also send us an email at the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast at gmail.com with any questions, any topics that you want us to do. Like we're all ears. We want to make sure that this is catered to all of you out there. And we're going to do Q&A episodes. We're going to continue to have interviews with other coaches and experts in the space and different type of people out there who are awesome and can provide a lot of value to you guys as well. And then lastly, we're just going to, me and Matt will pop on here just like we did today and just go back and forth on a topic. And other than answering questions, just kind of do what we do here and just provide some value, which I think even in the midst of this announcement podcast, hopefully you got some good value from this one, because I think there's a lot of good nuggets in there just on different things, even just from Matt sharing a lot of information on what he's going through currently, what he's done in the past. Like you can grab a ton of stuff from there. So I would just say, let's end by just what's your Instagram, like, so everybody can follow. I guess I don't know if I've ever put my Instagram on here, but what's your Instagram? So everybody.
You'll ask my Instagram, and then I'll ask you your Instagram. You can put yours on there too.
I love it. Yeah.
Mine's just Fit with Matt, and it's separate. If you type it in, you'll see it, and you'll see a picture of my face, but it's separated by underscores, like fit_with_Matt. And that's my TikTok, Instagram. Facebook's just my name, Matt DeJesus. I think it's Matt Brody, my middle name too, Matt Brody DeJesus, because there's a lot of Matt DeJesus out there. But you should be able to find me based on the profile picture. And what about yours? What's your Instagram?
So it's Alex Wojo Nutrition. So that's me on Instagram, TikTok, if you want to follow me there. And then I'm Alex Wojciechowski, which is WOJCIECHOWSKI on Facebook, if you want to follow me there as well. So yeah. But awesome, man. I'm honestly so pumped to have you join me and for us to be going at this shit together. Like I'm extremely excited, and we're going to be just providing so much value here over the next years, right? Next, let's say 10 years, because then we'll have it figured out,
I like that. Yeah. I'm excited just to give value, man. I'm excited to help as many people as we can. Hopefully people use us as a tool and use us to their advantage. Like Alex said, the Lifestyle Nutrition Podcast at gmail.com. You throw any questions over there, and I'm super pumped to help in any way I possibly can.
Love it, dude. Well, awesome. Appreciate you, everybody, for watching. You're going to be seeing these two faces coming at you from now on. And, if this was helpful, or if you just want to make sure that you don't miss out on this action going forward, make sure you subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You'll get all the updates when we drop a new podcast. and you'll get all our new topics going forward. So thanks again, everybody. Thanks, Matt. Again, I'm so pumped to have you, and we'll talk to y'all later.